All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us here today on this Erev Shabbos. Today's shir should be the Ilu Nishmas, Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt, Rivka Bas Gavriel Tzvi, and the Refuah Shalema Bekarov, Meshalem ben Sarah Rachel, and the Refuah Shalema Miriam Bas Sarah. We are on page 59 for those who are following along in the art scroll. And we are finishing up today the 7 qualities. We're going to do the 5th, 6th, and 7th quality that we're going to explain. We started talking about the 7 qualities. We finished those, but Rav Av is bringing different psakim that bring some proof, some basis to the fact that the only one who possesses any one of these qualities is only Hashem. And today we're going to go through those. We're going to finish those off. And the 5th quality, v'shehu misyachid b'anhagas ha'adam etchilas inyone v'etchalas gedulai. We spoke about the quality that this person that you're placing full trust in has to be somebody who was involved in your life and managed it from when you were conceived until the day you died. And we understand that the only person in existence who is that is Hashem. He says, it says in Pashas Devarim, it says, is he not your father, your master? Has he not created you? Has he not formed you? V'amar, it says in the Tehillim, David HaMelech says, Alecha nismachti mi bet mebei imi ata goizi. And it says, I relied on you from the womb. You withdrew me from the innards of my mother. And he said, you separated me from the eggs, you made me a fetus, and then I was conceived. V'amar haloi kechalav taticheni v'chagvina takfieni. That's a very interesting pasuk, and he says, as we know that Hashem directs all stages of a person's development, as it says, the taicha that is, behold, you poured me out like milk and curdled me like cheese. The explanation to that metaphor is that you poured me out like milk, like semen looks like milk, and you curdled me like cheese, and you made me into a fetus, and then I was born. Usha'ara inyan, and as elaborated in the rest of the pasuk, which says, you clothed me with your skin and flesh, you covered me with bones and sinews, and you granted me life, and were kind to me, and your ordinance protected over my spirit. That's what the pasuk says over there on the 5th quality. On the 6th quality it says, V'shete'alta v'hezekoi einam b'rishus adam. We also know that one's benefit and one's harm are not under the control of a man at all. We spoke about the 6 qualities. This is a person who controls every part of your life. Nobody can hurt you, nobody can benefit you, only with his own being. But this capability is only in the hand of Hashem. It says in Eichel, we says, whose decrees was ever fulfilled if Hashem did not ordain it? Meaning, if Hashem didn't decree or ordain something, then that never came true. It never came forth. Is it not from the mouth of the Most High, which is Hashem, that misfortune and good emanate? Isn't it that Hashem is the one who makes that happen? And not only does Hashem have exclusive control over the occurrence of all things, whether good, bad, but he also alone who can ensure that those things live on, they endure forever. As it says in the pasuk, grass withers and blossom fades, but the word of Hashem shall stand forever. V'amar achein chatzei ha'am. And it says early in the pasuk, indeed the people are grass. It explains that the people are grass. That what does that mean? That man withers away and dies, at which point he has no control over anything at all. But Hashem never withers away or dies. And so therefore Hashem can be everlasting strength and ability to control and do everything. And he says this matter has already been sufficiently clarified in the 3rd essay of his work, which talks about, just a reminder that Shaar Habitachon is one of the shars of Chovos HaLevavos. Shaar Habitachon is another chapter that he talks about the Avodas Alakim, how to be an Evet for Hashem, and over there he talks more about this last topic. Now, the 7th and final quality to bring proof to bring to bring substance to this, to this. And finally, we know that Hashem is generous and all-inclusive, and His kindness and all-embracing extend to all people, including the undeserving. We spoke about in order for somebody we should be able to put full trust in that person. That person has to be someone that will be kind and good to us, even if we don't deserve it. Because it says in Psukim that even the evil also get kindness from Hashem. We see this, Kameshanema, Toiv Hashem lakal v'rachmav akol masav. What is kol masav? He mercies all His works. All His works, every person is Hashem's creation. Every organism is Hashem's creation. Which means even the evildoers on this world are also Hashem's creation. And Hashem bestows goodness on them as well. And this goodness and His mercy toward all living, this is expressed by actively providing for them. It says, He gives nourishment to all flesh, for His kindness endures forever. And not only does He give the basic sustenance to every single person, but means you open your hand and you satisfy the desire of every living thing. Not only the necessities of every living thing, but the desire of every living thing. And Rav Av is going to finish off over here, and we're going to actually complete that, because it's a little bit more than just a summary, but he finishes off in saying that he's not bringing these psakim over here to bring proof that it's only Hashem that is capable of all these 7 qualities. He's only bringing these psakim saying that it's logical that the only one who's capable of doing all these things is only Hashem. That's logic. If you can't see the logic in that, that's a different issue. But the reason he brings this is so that when you go through each criteria and you bring a pasuk as a reference, you're basically studying that criteria and you're remembering it. And he wants you to remember it. And he's only using these psukim. And he says, there's so many more psukim that I can put on every single one of these criteria. I'm just using these few for each one just so that you should be able to study it and remember them a bit more clearly. So you're not just rummaging through them 1 through 7. And that's what we're going to talk about next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, in summarizing Perek Beis. Now, I want to talk a bit about this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha, actually the special part of this Parsha, is this Shabbos is Shabbos Zachar. And on Parsha Zachar, we talk about Purim. Next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to have Purim. It's going to be beautiful, and I'm looking forward to it. But on Purim, it talks about, there's a pasuk that says, and these days of Purim should never cease amongst the Yidden. What does this mean? So the Midrash says that when Mashiach comes, all the Yom Tovim will cease to exist, but Purim is going to stay forever. It's going to keep on going. Now there's a bunch of different commentaries, a bunch of sforim written on what the Midrash actually meant by that. But one thing that's very clear is that the Midrash shows the significance and importance of Purim over all the other Yom Tovim, over Shavuos, over Sukkot, over Pesach, and which means that there's something more important in Purim than there is anywhere else. And what is that? And so Levi Yitzchak from Berdichev explains that in life, in history, in Jewish history, we had a lot of nisan. There were a lot of miracles that happened. Yetzias Mitzrayim, we saw Kriyas Yamsuf, we saw man, we saw water coming out of a rock, and we saw a lot of these nisan. The thing is, though, with nisan are only viewed by that generation, the people who experienced it. And no one else actually experienced that. He says the difference between Purim and all these other nisan that happened is that Purim was very, very different. What happened with Purim? Purim was a setup from the beginning to the end. There wasn't a single standing nace that happened. Everything on face value was b'derech hateva. Let's talk about this. He says, a king becomes intoxicated. He becomes drunk. What happens? He says, I'm going to kill my wife. I'm going to kill the queen. And he has that. He has his queen is executed. Achashverosh goes and executes Vashti. Then He's looking for a new wife, a new queen, and so he finds the most beautiful woman in all the land. He chooses Esther, and he chooses her. And she doesn't tell him that she's Jewish. But she becomes the queen. Another, Derech HaTeva. He says not only that, her uncle, Mordechai HaTzadik, he was part of the Sanhedrin over there then, of Beis Din. And what happens is, because he understands so many languages, he discovers that there are a few people that are plotting against the king that they want to kill him. What happens? The queen reports this, Queen Esther reports this to the king, and thereby saving the king's life. And what happens is, she then turns the wrath of Achashverosh not towards the Yidden. He moves it away from the Yidden, but he moves it towards, who was it then over there? I'm sorry. Remind me. Towards all the other guys. Towards Haman over there at that point, right? And then what happened was, Haman goes, he tries to plot, he turns the wrath against him. At the end, we know the end of the story. But every single part of the story was just news. Imagine someone comes into Beis Medrash in the morning and goes, did you hear? The queen was hung. What happened? Achashverosh got drunk and he killed her. Okay, big deal. What's the big deal? It's newsworthy, but it's like 2 minutes and that's it, it's past it. And so on, every single part of that story is newsworthy, but it's not a nes. He says, it's only when you put together the entire story that you realize that every step of the way was a correlation by Hashem. It's a beautiful choreography that Hashem did, b'derech hateva, and not as an open nes. Every single piece contributed to what the end result was about. He says, miracles such as these are with us today. Every single day in our life, we have miracles. Now, we don't see them as miracles. We see them as b'derech hateva. We don't see every step of the way as even being a good thing for us. Achashverosh got mad at some point, and the Jews got scared. Haman tried to make sure, because he was a big anti-Semite, he tried to make sure that all the Yidden get wiped out. And we got petrified, but that was all b'derech hateva because things were happening. He says, every single one of us has to come to the realization that in every part of our life, every single day, there are things that happen. And that's part of the choreography. It's part of the story the same way it was a part of the story when it came to Purim. There was a choreography there. There wasn't an open nes of splitting of the sea, of Kriyas Yamsuf. It wasn't anything like that. It was all b'derech hateva. And he says every single day when we daven by Moedim, we said, V'al nishmoseinu lach, v'al nisecha shebchol yom, umanu. And what does that mean? He says the miracle says, for your miracles are with us every day. This belief enables us to entrust our lives and the care to Hashem. And I felt it was so beautiful to bring this Dvar Torah into this week that we learned so much about that. We learned that we already have that trust in Hashem because we've seen so much that He's done for us. Things that later on we put together, the story, the choreography was put together, and we realized that was only Yad Hashem. That Hashem put those things together, good or bad. And we have our tough days when we look at things and we say it can't be good. But understanding later on in life when we realize that it was actually for our benefit. And that's what we learn from Purim. And that is why it says that Purim is going to last forever. Because that's something that goes in our DNA every single day. The bitachon that we have. And that we realize that everything in life is done for a purpose. Everything in our lives is done for our good, for our well-being. And that's why Hashem does that. Thank you everyone for joining us here today. Have a wonderful, beautiful Shabbos, and I love you all.